Welcome to another exciting edition of Scaling Signals, where we will talk about current market dynamics and how to scale small businesses.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining in. Today, we have Karl Pister, who is here with us today. Karl, would like to thank you for joining. And if you would be so kind, give us a background, give us an overview of your company, who you are, and how you help your clients.
Thank you, and great to be with you. Thanks for the invite, Neil. Company is the Coaching Group Inc., and we are working almost exclusively in the healthcare space. We do executive coaching and leadership development and also conflict resolution for hospitals, organizations, clinics, individuals that are a little short on their potential and are fighting with each other a little bit more than they need to be.
Understand. Yes, I've done some work in the medical space, usually with larger hospital systems. There are a lot of personalities. There are a lot of egos. We'll just call it what it is. And that's okay. Doctors are very specialized, intelligent, highly compensated people. And I want them saving me. I recently had a surgery, so I want the most educated, the smartest guy in the room working on me. But that does create conflict, which is a great opportunity for you and your company.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about, the elevator pitch and the value prop you bring to potential, either individual doctors if you're coaching them, or management layers if you're providing them more of a business to business type of relationship where you're working with multiple individuals across perhaps the provider.
I'll go in reverse.
Okay.
When a hospital approaches us and wants to know about our services, one of the biggest items we can emphasize for them is retention of physicians. And right now, healthcare is struggling financially, and they're looking at savings anywhere they can. And if they can use services of a firm such as ours and retain one physician because of that, that hits their bottom line at a minimum of $500,000.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious?
To recruit a physician. And that's low. That's
Wow.
a low level, because not only do I have to go out and find a physician, I'm working with an organization right now who one of their candidates just fell through. It won't be until January of 27 that they're able to fill that because of the logistics of bringing in a doctor. She has to give notice on her end. They lose all the income that the departing doctor. So not only is it recruiting costs, it's loss of volume.
Yeah.
It's loss of productivity. And right now, when a hospital and an organization can realize that investing in the small cost of coaching compared to the 6-7 figures of the impact, once that realization is there, the sales come the next steps come fast.
That is something else.
And to the individual physician, you set me up perfectly for this answer. Lots of personality, lots of ego, and lots of confidence.
Yeah.
It's Yogi Berra once said, "It ain't bragging if you can do it." And,
Yes.
When I've just taken apart my thousandth heart and effectively put in a new valve, save that person's life, don't tell me what to do. And yet, when they run up against other people that are just as smart, that due to ranking within a hospital may be telling them what to do, and they've bumped into enough that now I've had several people come to me saying, "Karl, if I don't turn it around, I'm going to lose my privileges."
Wow.
And one of them had lost privileges for 2 weeks, and it hit his bottom line to the tune of $50,000 for 2 weeks. You can do the math for what he was bringing in for the hospital and himself.
Yep.
He had the humility to say, "Okay, what I've been doing isn't working." So, and it isn't complicated. We're not doing 180s. We're just introducing some nuances to the brilliance and emotional intelligence that most physicians aren't trained in. A lot of entrepreneurs aren't trained in it. I mean, they're smart people and it's full speed ahead. And just helping them be able to learn some nuanced details with their intelligence level, it moves fast.
Now, listen, we all are not perfect. And so the goal is to have an outside voice give us the ability to see what we're missing. I
Yes.
completely agree that the value of coaching personally.
Mhm.
I have a coach. I think it's good for anyone who's looking to progress their career. So for doctors to acknowledge that, it's certainly something that, will be a bit of a hit to their, ego, but it'll multiply
Yes,
their return on investment. I completely agree with you.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So how did you end up here starting this business? Let's talk about that journey, because I guarantee there's some good curves and bumps along the way.
So it's all about network.
Yeah.
Quick story. 1997, there's a large organization here in Oregon, Portland, close to where I live, that brought me in. And I did some work with the HR department for maybe a couple of months. 1997. Fast forward to 2007, I get a call from Pam. Pam says, I'm not with organization X anymore. I'm with Y. And I've got 2 clinic managers who aren't getting along. Could you help me out? 10 years later, from that one phone call, I can track contacts in 9 states, over 50 organizations in 2025 that generated off that one call.
Amazing.
It's just keep delivering. What is it? Under promise, over deliver, follow through, add value. And yes, do we have a good website? Yes. Do we have marketing materials? Yes. But I don't know about you and your entrepreneurial path. There is nothing like a word of mouth referral.
No, you're absolutely right.
You're
Those have the highest close rates. Generally speaking, they're invaluable.
Yeah. And so when someone, shoots me an email, says, I'd like to talk, and their opening comment is, I talked to Jim over at X,
Mm-hmm.
and they were really pleased. When can we meet to see how you can help us? Well, that just eliminated about 40 layers of sales training.
Yeah.
Because Jim vetted me out.
Yeah.
And he let this person know that I was reliable and followed through. And it's a pretty easy formula to follow. But as entrepreneurs, we don't rest much.
Yeah.
So, some people say, what's your biggest advice for someone starting a company or starting a business? And it's plan on not resting much. Now, the rewards are exponential, not only financially, but also just, I love what I do. I just got off a coaching call with a guy that I can't wait to work with because it's a fun thing we're going to be doing. And he said, why are you so enthusiastic? And I said, why wouldn't I be?
Yeah.
I spent the previous hour recording content for a YouTube channel we're doing. I get this opportunity. I get to talk to him. It's the best.
It's not work when it's fun.
Yes. Perfectly said.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. And when you stop having fun, you need to take a step back and be like, all right, what are we doing? So
exactly.
I had that experience at my last company. It became a pressure cooker. It was owned by a very large PE firm. And it got to a point where my wife was like, you're miserable. So whatever it is that's causing that, remove it. And once she said that, it was like a knock in the head. Like I woke up and I was like, oh yeah, I really am unhappy.
Thank you, dear, for pointing out the obvious.
Yeah, well, you need it sometimes because you get stuck in it and you don't like to quit things. You want to make it go and do the best. But sometimes you realize you're like, well, that's great, but there's, this is not the environment for me, or this is not the culture, or whatever it is. Life's too short.
And it's just like your wife brought out, sometimes all as it is that proverbial knock on the side of the head of, yeah, I really aren't happy.
Yeah.
So next steps. And I guess the big thing is, apparently you had the guts to say, not for me. And you probably walked away from some dollars.
Yeah, I did. But that's my choice. I also had the choice of just going through it and changing my attitude about it and like, oh, you know what? I'm going to let this deflect off me. that's
Yeah.
also a choice. I chose a different option, but I could have done that. And that's the beautiful thing about, I think, if you have a coach or someone in your life that helps you, is they help you level set. Be like,
Mhm.
at the end of the
Yes.
day,
Yes.
does this stressor, whatever it is, really change things about your life? Like, does it make that big of a difference? And that's what I always have to remind myself when things get, a little stressful, or I'm tight on time, or I'm just like, oh my God, there's no time in the day. I just got to sit back and
Yep.
say, what are my priorities?
Yes. Yes. And I don't think you can go to that point unless you've taken the time to figure out where your big buckets are.
Yeah.
And if what's stressing you, if it's not one of those buckets, then to say, wow, how'd I get here? And I need to get back to my buckets.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's the fun thing about what you're doing, because I do it too with, because I coach my teams. It's problem solving. A lot of it is problem solving.
And just down that line, as leaders, if we can, World Economic Forum came out with their first list of this was, I think, in 2015. But every 3 or 4 years, they talk about these skills that the future workforce is going to need to have.
Yeah.
And I've now looked at 3 or 4 of their lists, and they add tech in and they add AI in, etc. But
Sure.
what is not left the list? Critical thinking, creative problem solving. Critical thinking, creative problem solving. And yet sometimes when we work with teams, we assume, for example, a physician who's trained as a surgeon is brilliant about taking apart hearts and putting them back together. But if you put an administrative or business task in front of him,
Yeah.
to piece it apart in a coherent, critical thinking, problem solving sort of way, there's no bridge across that canyon. And
Right.
so for you as a leader to be able to say, let me give you a framework. Let me use your existing genius and give you a couple of tweaks. And then you'll be on both sides of the canyon, your medical expertise and leadership expertise.
Yeah.
It's helping them think. A lot of times we try to change how people do. Carl, you got to do this differently. Well, but Carl then doesn't sustain it. Why? Because Carl's still thinking the same way before you told him what to do.
Completely agree.
And I'll come, when I wake up in the morning, I may not remember what Neil told me, but I'll remember my years of habit and off we go.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've developed some techniques to help people, because that change, it's a behavioral change. And that is as difficult because it starts up here.
Yes.
It's the instinctual almost approach. And I know personally, some things that have helped me with that are like breathing techniques and taking a moment before I respond and things of that nature, so I can really think through my response, be calmer.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've developed some techniques, and are most of your students open to those types of things? Because sometimes they might not always be comfortable.
I think I love your breathing. I love the power of, as one person called, the power of the pause. Carl, before you kick into overdrive here, you might want to check your engine.
Yep.
Just pull back a little.
That's a good analogy. I like that.
One thing, because I work with a lot of senior leaders that have had extreme success.
Sure.
And so their hard drive saying, why are you talking to this guy? One of my clients, his organization passed $2 billion in revenue last year.
Oh my goodness.
He's done really well.
Yeah.
And so it's, call him John. It's, John, I'm not asking you to change your fluency of brilliance. I'm asking you to learn a new language. And so this thinking patterns that we're talking about, let's just think of it. We're not going to abandon English.
Yep.
We're not going to ask you to go to a foreign country. We just want you to practice this new approach.
That's a really good way to position it.
I used to teach Spanish, and you have your new language learner and they're sitting down at deer in the headlights. I mean, it's just, and what we do, because English and Spanish share Latin as a base.
Mm-hmm.
And so 25% of all Spanish words are recognizable by someone who's never seen Spanish. Communication is comunicación. Revelation is revelación. So it's suddenly And we'd hand them a sheet out of the front page of the, it's El Nacional out of Mexico City. And we'd say, circle the words, Carl, this is Spanish 101. This is the Wall Street Journal of Mexico. And no, just here's a pen, go through and circle. And you just could see it. Oh, I know that one. I know this one. I know this one. And suddenly it's, instead of not knowing anything, I at least can recognize a good percentage, 25%. And suddenly their mindset is, I'm not drowning.
Yep.
Of course, we didn't hit them with, yes, there's 16 verb tenses, but that was for another day.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
But, joking aside, it was, okay. And so with my clients, it's, you're already brilliant. We're adding a new language to the brilliant.
Yeah, that's a really good way to approach it. I like that.
And it's because a lot come in, I don't want to change. I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
Not asking you to. I'm asking you to add to, not change.
That's good. That's really good. I'm going to borrow that. I actually like that because I conduct training for sales teams, and I like that. That's I'm going to give a new analogy there. So good. I like that. Excellent. So what have been some key milestones in your journey? Because we're talking back from the 80s to 90s, and now any key milestones that stick out for our audience?
Key ideas more than a milestone.
Okay.
It hit me. One of my mentors said, Carl, keep reading, because the average person I can't quote the statistic. I'll just tell you what he told me. Only 2% of people after they leave college keep reading.
Wow.
Let's say it's 20% keep reading. That still puts me or anyone listening to us today ahead of 80% of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've had this show up so many times. I was working with a nursing team, and one of the people was kind of reluctant. She got to the meeting early. I was there. And so we were talking. I said, and she said, oh, Carl, I really feel bad. I haven't been able to read the assignment. I said, no problem. When's the last time you read a book? She said, I haven't read a book since I left graduate school.
Oh, my goodness.
When was that? 13 years ago. So her database is stagnant.
Yeah.
She's done, she can, hook me up to a pump or, titrate the medication, which, like you said, in surgery, let them do that and do it well. But she wasn't energized anymore. And I could see why. So I would say my single biggest milestone is realizing that I need to stay current with publications, with good reading. And also, I was just talking to my last client. I had an amazing opportunity about 2 years ago to go to Harvard for a week in their program on negotiation.
Oh, good for you.
And do a 1-week class on mediation. There were only 50 of us. Our instructors were literally authors of books we were reading. The best of the best. Yeah. You can't help but to leave an environment like that absolutely pumped. So,
great.
And people ask again, why are you so enthused? Why wouldn't I be? I'm learning all the time.
Yeah.
I get to talk to great people on my podcast. I get to have opportunities like this. And some people, don't give us this happy bit. Well, if we can't be happy in what we're doing and wake up in the morning, my body bounces me out of bed at 5:15 every morning.
Good for you.
And why wouldn't I? It's too much to do. I love it.
Yeah. And
I might say I'm not just, I do have another life. I've got a marvelous wife, 4 children, and 8 grandchildren. Good so there's another part of my life. But I think I'm enthused about that part because I'm enthused about this. How could I be happy with them if I knew that as soon as I left them, I'd go back to this dreary grind of work? People talk about work-life balance, Neil. I say it's work-life blend.
Yeah, agreed. There's never a balance. There's always going to be a time. I just came off vacation with my family. We had a great time. We have 5 kids. So I know the joy you had of 4 children. That is a roller coaster always. And there are days where it's just bliss and it's going great. Everybody's having fun. There are days where you've got cats and dogs for children and they're just fighting, so it just changes and you roll with it. And it is that. But I completely agree with what you said, that when one side of the equation and you're happy, because the family, unless you're going through a bad marriage or something, you're generally pretty happy there.
Mhm.
It's the other side that will roll over, though, and affect that to be unhappy when you're letting those
Yes.
be out of balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really true. How have been there? Sorry. Over the last decade, there's been a lot of changes in medical. Let's not even bring up COVID per se, because that was a terrible event for the medical industry. A lot of hospitals really struggled. But what would you say are some potential either events, technology changes, system changes from the government, with Obamacare or whatever, that has maybe impacted your business or caused you to change?
Great question. Certainly, anytime funding, for example, right now we're in severe Medicaid cuts.
Mm-hmm.
CMS, which is the Medicare arm, has been cutting payments to hospitals for about the last 3 to 4 years. And the margins already are extremely thin. So we've had to adjust our pricing to accommodate that. But I think the biggest thing with the funding and economic crisis, some of the hospitals dealing with less than 100 days cash on hand.
Mm-hmm.
They've never faced this before. Almost paralytic sometimes in the response. I think even going back to March of 2020, when we really had to look at things and say, are we going to survive?
Yeah.
And it's the ability to step back and say, but you've got to be strategic about it in order to be situationally effective. And that's what I guess I would encourage any entrepreneur to do. Know what your strategic base is. A strong network, knowing what that network needs, and an absolute commitment to adding value to them.
Yeah, agreed.
And that organized approach, although some might say, yeah, Karl, you don't pay bills with just thinking you're adding value. And I would disagree and say, yes, you do. Because when you're showing up on a regular basis with your network, knowing, and just as an example, one of my mentors in late March of 2020, he sent out an email saying, you choose one of my programs, it'll be yours free of charge because I know it's struggling right now. It's my gift to you.
He paid it forward.
Yep. Yes. Now, I have probably sent multiples of that free gift his way over the last 5 years. I've referred people to him. Mm-hmm. I've used his insights and technology through licensing. So somebody might say, well, how could you do that? Well, there was a great story coming out of the book by Joseph Michelli, where he's one of the top authors on customer service. And I think the book's called Strength Through Adversity. He talks about one of his clients who was contacted by a major hospital. He was European based, and they said, we need this right now. And it was one product that only he had. And he said, we'll ship it this afternoon. And they said, well, funding right now is tight. He said, do you need it? Yeah, we need it. It's on the plane today.
That's amazing.
And it was multi-million.
Oh my goodness.
And they needed the product. They trusted us to call. They will pay us. Yeah. And they paid it. But the loyalty that engenders of having enough confidence in your structure, your finances, and your abilities to say, done. It's coming your way. The fact you called us says you trust us. We're going to reciprocate that trust and send you what you need. Instead of, well, we need you to go through our vetting process and fill out 49 forms and get that, XYZ over to us before we can act on it. Nope, it's on the plane. I love that example.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to actually, at the end of this, I'm going to go back and order that for Kindle. So
Yeah,
I haven't read
it's
that
a
one.
great read. Any of
I will.
Michelli's books are amazing.
Yeah, that one I haven't read though. We got a couple minutes left. I did want to talk about any challenges you're facing today, both from, either staffing internally. I don't know how many folks work for your firm, or delivery, or crap. It could be as simple as, I just hate doing my accounting. I mean, what challenges do you face today?
My challenge is making sure we have people that are owners in the business.
Okay.
Entrepreneurial thinking is thinking unto itself. And sometimes I find I assume that others run at that level.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very fortunate to have a couple of key people that also think of that. I know one, I had just brought her on. She'd been with us a couple of months, and we were on a Zoom call, and someone was proposing something, and I heard her mumble under her breath. I don't think she realized that she wasn't on mute. And she said, "Not our brand." And at that moment, I knew she was a keeper.
Good.
Because with just 2 or 3 months in, she'd already identified with it.
That's
and as
fantastic.
we bring on new people, it's how can I get them to that level? Because, let's just call it out. I know there's lots of stereotypes. We are dealing with a new demographic and their perception of work.
Yes. Yep.
And they bring some brilliance.
Yep.
They also bring some challenges.
Completely agree.
And it's our job to work with the brilliance and accept, some of the ways they think are just stratospheric.
Yeah, it's just different.
I'm glad you understand it, because I don't, but it sounds like a good idea. Please run with it.
Yeah, completely.
But I'd like you to run with it 40 hours a week and realize that there may be times where we ask more than that. And I realize there are probably listeners that are thinking, Karl, you are now a certified dinosaur.
No.
But to some degree, and I keep asking people around me, where am I losing relevance? But Neil, I haven't seen where the basics have changed.
It doesn't.
And you talk about the surgeon. It's, we talk about, well, we need to be balanced. We need all this. But when we need a surgeon, we want the most exclusively trained, most experienced, hyper individual. If they're OCD, may they be OCD on me.
Absolutely.
Because I want to wake up from that anesthetic different.
Now, your analogy you just said is dead on. And it's funny because going a little bit different direction, you've got the big brand consultant companies out there, the Accentures, the Deloittes, the PwCs, and I liken that to general doctors. Like you're going to see generals. They have specialists in there, but they're lumped in. You don't get them full time. It's very difficult. If you have a true niche problem, find a niche consulting partner that matches that. I completely agree with that. And I find it funny that, the Fortune 500 continue to just go down the same road always. And the results don't change too much. They overspend, they get overbilled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Value's not there.
And I know we're close to time. One conversation that has always impressed me was one, I was working with this brilliant senior vice president in a major health plan. And he said, Karl, and I said, call him again, John. John, you seem down today. He said, Karl, I just came from a meeting. And they told us they're bringing in one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I know their budget because he was that high up. And he said, there's not a thing they will tell us that if they ask the brain trust that was around that table just 2 hours ago, we will come up with a better solution than newcomers will. And it was just, why do we go outside when many times if we've led our people well, they will come up with the solutions. And they're better solutions because they know the intricacies that a consultant never will.
Yeah, there is a lot of truth to that for sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot from being on the inside. You understand the politics, you understand the unwritten rules, and if you're given the opportunity to challenge them, most employees would want to challenge them and recommend new options. You're dead on. Dead on.
And one thing that I found is that works so well, and I get some hilarious feedback on it. I'll run these groups, mastermind groups, where an organization will bring me in and to help them, look at a problem. And people will say, well, Karl, it's like you knew exactly what we were thinking. It's like you were right with us. And well, yes, I did, because the day before the meeting, I interviewed you all and you told me what your concerns were. So all I did was tee up your thinking in a structured environment with no phones. We were locked away. We were on it for 5 hours, and your hundreds of years of experience around the table, all I did was focus the light.
Yeah. Consolidate it and bring it together and make sure it made cohesive music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's the value of an outside consultant. Right there is the value. You're almost an intermediary or a coordinator, whatever you want to call it. But that to me is more valuable than bringing in a domain SME per se. It's someone that can facilitate those conversations. And a lot of times, I think you hit this too earlier in the conversation, because there is friction between individuals sometimes. They're not going to be able to come up with that solution together. But bringing in a third party like yourself changes everything.
It sure can.
Yeah. That has been, that's very insightful. So that's something that I think, our audience needs to listen to and take home and understand the value. Is there any other parting words of wisdom, lessons learned that you'd like to give our audience? And I would also ask that you remind our audience how to find you and reach out to you as well.
Absolutely. This sounds really trite, Neil. I've found that the biggest item that will set you apart as a leader and an entrepreneur is the ability to slow down and listen. And that sounds so blasted simplistic. Really? That's the best you can come up with, Karl, is listening. And I'm not saying hearing. These work all the time. I hear a lot. But listening opens up this gold mine of information that makes me a better entrepreneur.
Yep.
And sometimes we get a little, I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes I can get a little ahead of myself on my enthusiasm, and listening puts good brakes. It doesn't shut me down. It just puts good brakes on things to make that pause.
I learned about active listening, which is what you're referring to, versus passive listening.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I went to work for IBM, I'll leave you with a quick story. My first time, I wrote a blog for them that they published. And I said, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We should listen twice as much as we talk, at least.
Absolutely. And yet we break that rule on a consistent basis.
We do. We're all guilty of it, especially, when you're put up on a stage, you got to speak, and it kind of reminds you, you're not on the stage, where I need to remind myself, like when I'm working with clients, a few weeks I'll be out traveling, working with clients. Again, the best thing for me to do is just probe, ask questions, and listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So people can get a hold of us best is through our website. It's coachinggroupinc.com. The word coaching, the word group, abbreviation inc.com. All the contact information is there. For those that want to write it down, it sounds crazy, but my cell number, 503-381-8705. And give me a call. Let me know how I can help you. Even if it's just leaning in on some ideas, happy to do that. And Neil, thanks for this opportunity today.
Karl, thank you so much. This was a very different and fun conversation. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I actually have some family members that are in the medical community. I'm sure they'll listen to this and see. So I'm not going to name any names, but we'll leave it there. So thank you again, Karl. And audience, again, it was Karl Pister from the coaching group. Please reach out to him if you have any need for his services. Talk to you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Scaling Signals. See you on the next podcast.